Messi at Hulsugayek, Navaluti Unif Maukanen, Medinis Maukayek, Nituk Metkanen, Wehoyan,
The Thunderbird was a sign from the Great Spirit to the Passamaquoddy people, who survived the purification of the world and had gone to Mount Katahdin because it was the highest point. The Thunderbird gave hope to Native people that the storm was over, so they came down from the mountain to start life over. The first form of life they saw was the snake. They were so glad to see the snake that they danced. The wars of 1600s and the 1700s between France and England were finally over during the early years of the 1700s. Then, in 1776, the war between England and the colonists began. During the end of that war, Massachusetts and the District of Maine wanted to pay the Revolutionary War veterans, and they also wanted to raise money. This resulted in the massive sale of Indian land. My people are warriors. They survived 200 years of broken promises. Our cultural strength and the power of the Great Spirit helped us to survive. In 1790, Congress passed the Non-Intercourse Act. The act regulates commerce between Americans and Native Americans. Part of the act incorporated Aboriginal title in the United States. This act prohibited the purchase of Indian lands without the approval of the federal government. This had its origins in the Royal Proclamation of 1763 and the Confederation Congress Proclamation of 1783. In 1794, a treaty was established between the Passamaquoddy tribe and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This was done in violation of the Congressional Non-Intercourse Act of 1790. During this period of time, the new state of Maine is formed from the separation of Massachusetts. Part of the agreement was to have the tribes release Massachusetts from its treaty obligations, but the Passamaquoddy tribe didn't sign. In the separation agreement, Maine was to uphold Passamaquoddy treaty rights as agreed in 1820. A federal act called the Missouri Compromise formed two states, Maine a free state and Missouri a slave state. Within 12 months, a Passamaquoddy delegation traveled to Portland to meet with Governor King to discuss some land issues. Deacon Basin stated, "The British government has took all of our land on the east side of the St. Croix, land that our ancestors have occupied and improved for thousands of years. With that loss, our tribe has become very poor. Further, the game and the fish that used to be plenty in the river are decreased. The game in the forest is disappeared." Deacon Basin also stated that the destruction of game is detrimental to all the public and very injurious to the Passamaquoddy tribe. He requested that no beaver, otter, muskrat be taken by any non-native between April and May of each year. In 1821, one of the first acts that the Maine government instituted was English language instructions on the reservation. Also in 1821, within a year of Maine becoming a state, the Maine governor was authorized to appoint Indian agents who shall care and manage tribal property for the use and the benefit of the Passamaquoddy tribe. No land is to be leased or contracted for trees, timber, or grass. On March 21st of 1787, Congress stated that the legislatures of several states cannot, by the right to pass, act in national interests concerning treaties, that any treaty between a state should be void, and that the Constitution of the United States transfers the power of treaty making from Congress to the President and the Senate. 1821 also proved to be a turning point in the tribe's history. Reverend Kellogg, who was a Protestant minister, made his first visit to Pleasant Point. He was trying to convince the tribe to start speaking English, and he acted as the Indian agent. His reply came from Deacon Basin, and Deacon Basin said, "The Great Spirit gave Indians his language, his religion, and the Passamaquoddy no alters what he says." 1822, a report from the Secretary of War to the President of the United States states that since the 17th century, there's been as many as 7 tribes. Today, there's only 3 tribes left, and the population of the Passamaquoddy tribe is at 379. In 1823, Maine passes a law in violation of the Act of Separation and in violation of the Non-Intercourse Act, and it was titled An Act to Regulate Salmon, Shad, and Alewife Fishery in the St. Croix. One of the items states, no eelwares shall be erected on any part of said river, lakes, or branches by Maine Indians. The fine was stated at $20. During the 1820s, a series of trespass charges were levied against the Passamaquoddy tribe. In January 5, 1825, the Secretary of War reported to the President on plans to move all the Indian tribes east of the Mississippi to reservations in the west. It is presumed that this arrangement does not include the small tribes in Maine. February 23, 1825, the Maine legislature gives the state governor full power and authority at any time to draw on funds to carry in effect all treaties now existing and to settle any Indian agent accounts. In 1826, the state of Maine starts to speed up land survey, further dividing and subdividing lands around the Passamaquoddy community. In 1827, the Catholic priest and the Protestant minister were battling for control of the Passamaquoddy. Deacon Sockerbasin stated, "What do souls do without a body? Our children must have bread, and you make us different from the government. You can take the bread from our children's mouths." June 5, 1827, Chief Francis Joseph Neptune sends a letter to the governor of Maine. Indians are minding their own business. We think other towns should do the same. And we would be very glad not to have white people on our township cutting Indian wood. Eventually, two parties formed at Pleasant Point. The old party, which followed the hereditary chief, and the new party, which wanted their leaders elected and followed the Catholic. In 1830, the city of Calais leased out a large boulder on the Salmon Falls. This large boulder was used for dip nets for thousands and thousands of years by the Passamaquoddy tribe. Later that year, the Maine legislature passed an act to prevent destruction of moose and deer. It prevented people hunting between the months of January and September. This was in violation of the previous treaties. During the 1830s, it was state policy to further divide Indian Township into lots for settlement. First, they were trying to convert native hunters into farmers. In 1831, a case was brought to the Maine Supreme Judicial Court, and it was the opinion of the court on the rights of Passamaquoddy that it is declared that every male citizen of the U.S. over the age of 21, excepting natives, had the right to vote. In 1832, Maine authorizes the sale of Indian land. The Indian agent is hereby authorized under the direction of the Maine governor to sell and convoy actual settlement in lots not exceeding 200 acres on the Holton Road to any person. All money received will be put in the state treasury. Another petition in 1832 requesting a road to cross Indian Township again was submitted by 20 local businessmen. In 1835, tribal captain Joseph Stanislaus was a man of great wisdom and of peaceful nature, but an incident in 1835 showed how Passamaquoddy felt about the land. He and others were leaving the forest in Perry. The white property owner stopped them. The captain had in his hand a pack of birch bark to be used for torchlight for herring fishing. The white man started to verbally attack the captain and his friends. In great emotion, the captain slipped his pack from his back and walked towards the person and spoke. "You don't make the trees. You don't make the land. The Great Spirit makes the trees. The Great Spirit makes the land. Passamaquoddy don't steal bark. Indian land, Indian trees, Indian bark, Indian water. Great while ago, the Great Spirit gave this all to Passamaquoddy. White man steal Indian land and everything." 1834. You ask me to plow the ground. Shall I take the knife and tear at my mother's breast? Then when I die, she will not take me to her breast to rest. You ask me to dig for stone. Shall I dig under her skin for her bones? Then when I die, I cannot enter the body to be reborn again. You ask me to cut the grass and make hay and sell it and be rich like the white man. How dare I cut off my mother's hair? March 19th, 1834. A sad moment for the Passamaquoddy tribe. The death of Chief Francis Joseph Neptune. 1836. Maine governor authorizes the sale of Indian Township. All land belonging to the Passamaquoddy tribe to be sold and the funds to use for their benefit. They do not want to become farmers, and their land is inroads for timber trespass. March 13th, 1839. Food deliveries at Pleasant Point from the Indian agent include 25 barrels of flour, 4 barrels of pork, 400 pounds of hog's lard, and as much Indian corn that equals $500.